morning, as we've talked about our flat Jesus and about our faith, and as we sing with each other, we can think about however one of these Jesuses may touch us. We can have rock and roll teenage Jesus with us, or we can have maybe what we envision in our minds as Jesus with us. Sometimes it's easier to know that Jesus is always with us because he is in our hearts, so it's okay to make him flat, right? It's okay to have him as a story. I'll start with the gospel. The reading is from Romans, chapter 1, verses 8 through 17. Faith check. In his letter to the church at Rome, Paul thanks God for the Roman church's faith, which is being proclaimed throughout the world, the whole world. Paul elaborates on the notion of faith and its ability to mutually edify believers. Furthermore, the gospel is powerless in our lives apart from faith, and faith is powerless in our lives apart from the gospel. How is your faith? How is your faith influencing others? Verses 8 to 12. I thank God through Jesus for every one of you. That's first. People everywhere keep telling me about your lives of faith, and every time I hear them, I thank him and God, who I so love to worship and serve by spreading the good news of the Son, the message. The message knows that every time I think of you in my prayers, which is practically all the time, I ask him to clear the way for me to come and see you. The longer this waiting goes on, the deeper the ache. I so want to be there to deliver God's gift in person and watch you grow stronger right before my eyes. But don't think I'm not expecting to get something out of this too. You have as much to give me as I do you. Please don't misinterpret my failure to visit you, friends. You have no idea how many times I've made plans for Rome. I've been determined to get some personal enjoyment out of God's work among you, and I have in so many other non-Jewish towns and communities. But something has always come up and prevented it. Everyone I meet, it matters little whether they're mannered or rude, smart or simple, deepens my sense of interdependence and obligation. And that's why I can't wait to go to you in Rome, preaching this wonderful good news of God. It's news I'm most proud to proclaim, this extraordinary message of God's powerful plan to rescue everyone with faith, everyone who trusts him, starting with Jews and then right to everyone else. God's way of putting people right shows up in the acts of his faith, confirming what Scripture has said all along. The person in right standing before God by trusting him really lives. The person in right standing before God by trusting him really lives. Word of God, word of life. Thanks be to God. So in my Gust-type sermon, we're going to share some stories of faith. And I wanted to share one story of faith to make us realize how we truly know that God is always with us, and we see him in other people all the time. Sometimes we don't realize it, but maybe we should spend more time reflecting on it. In El Salvador, there's a pastor that I really, there's several pastors. I mean, we are so blessed on this trip to be so close to the bishop of the Lutheran Church in El Salvador, to be close to Pastor Matthias, another pastor who oversees many, many areas. But there's Pastor Atilio. And Pastor Atilio was a pastor in Guacume, which is an area that we've talked about before, because that is many, or most often in our pictures. Our pictures where there's the quinceañeras, where we have the baptisms. I had little Emmanuel, that I'm his godmother, was baptized this year. Guacume would have literally hundreds of people coming from all these different rural areas, all worshiping here, and all celebrating all the special festivities at the exact same time. Well, when we were there the first time, there were a lot of people. But what we noticed a year ago, there weren't as many. And what we found out, very sadly, was because of the gangs and the problems that have worsened over time with the gangs in El Salvador, many of the people from the other areas can't cross into different communities. So this worship service is now not as big as it used to be. What I also realized a year ago was that Pastor Attilio was not there anymore. He lived in a house next to this awesome church in Guaycume on this huge hill. And a house that we all spent time building a couple years prior and listening to all the things that he's done, sharing the word of God throughout all these communities, visiting all these people in their homes, and he was no longer there. And that was because he refused to let a gang member take one of the girls that was near and dear to his heart and a Christian. And because he said to the gang member, no, you cannot have her, she's a child of God, please leave her alone, they threatened his life and his family's life. So he had to leave. So a year ago when we were there, we were told that he's no longer in Guaycume, and he's a couple hours away. And he really has nothing. He had his wife, he didn't have a church anymore, he didn't even have a job. He had to flee very quickly. And everybody was very saddened, but that's what it's like. There's not much you can do. So throughout this past year, prior to going there this summer, I would get emails, and he would email me, and I could kind of see he went through an illness at one point. He had a fruit stand to make money for him and his wife. Then they embarked on a pupuseria, which pupusas are a dish very common in El Salvador, kind of like a quesadilla. And then from that, he was able to make money. He was able to reach out to the community because he is just a wonderful man. You're very attracted to him as a person. And he went in this community and has now started a church. So when we were there this year, there was an actual service prior to the entire group getting there to bless his new congregation. One of the banners that we made here on our Supercharged Sunday is hanging in their new church. Now their new church is very similar to something like this, but a lot smaller. And I don't even think he has concrete yet. The Gus family pitched in, we gave him some money to buy chairs. And so after I came back from El Salvador, I had a picture of the chairs and a thank you note sent via email. And so he showed me all that he was able to purchase for his new church. And I think every day we run into things that can be frustrating, we can struggle, it can make us feel down, whether it's financial or physical or emotional. And it's so easy to lose our faith or to think, oh, maybe I just need to lay in bed this Sunday morning and not go to church because it's just too much. Things are just too much. We've all been there and we've all felt that. But I just want you to remember Pastor Attilio and how he did not stop, and look where it is today. So now he's worshiping with a whole new group of people because of his faith and because of his love in Jesus Christ. And I just think that's such an important story to take with us. Now, I reach out to you to see if you have any faith stories. I believe Nick might have one that you would like to share, or something that's touched your heart.
So when Pastor Dawn passed these guys out, it was very fitting because for those that were here that Sunday, we had a friend from Pennsylvania who joined us for the weekend on our way to Leadership Lab. So he drove from Pennsylvania here and then out to the Quad Cities and then back home just for Leadership Lab. So I guess I could actually share his faith story first. I wasn't even going to, but now it just popped in my head because his is a really incredible story. His dad's a pastor, but I don't think his dad's been a pastor his entire life. His dad kind of got into being a pastor later in life. And Devin is the youngest of three brothers, and he's 10 years the junior of his next closest brother. So very spread out. His parents are older, but he was looking for a leadership camp, a church camp, not just any church camp, because we have a bunch of them around here, Lutherdale and things like that, but like a leadership training type camp. So he just got online, started Googling, and found Leadership Lab. and came as a 13-year-old is the story. Cindy always tells it better, one of the coordinators at lab. But as a 13-year-old, his parents are going, we want to send him. He wants to go really bad, but we're really scared about sending him on a plane. She's like, send him, I'll pick him up, blah, blah, blah. Got it all worked out, he'll be fine. And he started going to lab, and he's been going ever since. And for him, it's been kind of on and off because of work. Since he's been an adult, we've been on staff. He's been kind of on and off when he can and can't come. But I mean, for me, it's been 19 years in leadership lab since I was a freshman in high school. So, yeah, it's kind of, that's his interesting phase story. So he doesn't really go to church much anymore right now, at least not on a regular basis. But he happened to come with us and happened to get a flat Jesus that day, that we then took all 3 of our flat Jesuses to lab. And then that kind of spread like wildfire from there. I had this one, right? No. This was Devin.
That was Devin.
Devin had this one. So we got to lab that Sunday night and we colored ours in and made them all pretty. Which one did you have? The staff or no staff?
The staff.
So Mandy had this one. The one that I had was Outback Jesus.
You
can kind of see it there. He's got like an Outback vest and a hat and all that fun stuff on. That one was kind of printed for VBS that was coming up too. So that's my golf cart lab that I drove around all week. So we put him on the golf cart. And he got asked about a lot. Like, what is that? And it's like, well, that's Outback Jesus. Because they didn't get it. They don't see it at first until you tell them. And then the one inside there is the hippie Jesus that Devin made this one the way he colored it into a really hippie. So it was hippie Jesus. He was on my steering wheel for a couple days, and then he was on the front on the other side for a few days. A lot of questions asked, and then we explained it, and then we got it at our church from our pastor during our sermon. So there's a lot of questions. And then Mandy's actually, again, the idea spread like wildfire real quick. Hers ended up got given to another leader. Usually, the way lab works is we have small groups for each age level. So there's basic, advanced, phase 3, step 4, and then crossroads, which is when they get to college. And within those levels, they break up into smaller groups. And usually those groups have 2 leaders, a male and a female. Is what we try. Sometimes it's 2 males, sometimes it's 2 females in your group, but we try to do male-female just for the dynamic of it. For the college age kids, we didn't have that, and so we took one of our more experienced leaders, Jay, who's been on the Crossroads level for probably the last 8 or 9 years, probably since its inception. The Crossroads college level, which is the level I run with another friend of mine, another leader who actually went through lab with me. Him and I are in charge of it, and then we're in charge of the smaller groups, of the leaders that run those groups. So Jay was by himself. So Jay and Flat Jesus number 3 ran that group. So he kind of had it in his room, and it was kind of a discussion point. The whole reason I bring that up is just because, granted, Leadership Lab is a very dream community. It's like the ideal Christ community because it is a leadership lab and it's all church folks, but it's all youth. And the amount of acceptance you see at lab compared to you see in the real world is insane. Although I have seen it get better, from what I've seen at least, and heard from these other labbers, especially by the time they get to college. But my point is, this small little idea went from here to lab, to a guy from Pennsylvania at lab, to a guy from Oswego at lab. The idea spread and it got attention. And the point being, yes, that's a dream community where we talked about it and had discussions about it just based off of this. People see that and that starts a discussion. But the idea that we can, just by talking about it, you don't have to be in their face, Bible banger, as they say it. I just posted a Facebook link the other day to the Grace website about not being a welcoming church. Being a welcoming church is a bad idea. And the whole point of the article is, being a welcoming church means you're just standing there waiting. We welcome you in if you come here. It's all about being an inviting church. And you don't have to go out there and be in your face Bible pushers, blah, blah, blah. But just by mentioning your faith, just by mentioning you're going to church Sunday, just by mentioning, oh, I've got this church camp I'm going to, that alone sparks so much discussion in a field you would never think it would. I'm a project manager for a commercial HVAC company. So think of the trades and those type of guys. And the type of conversations that's been started, just by me mentioning, where are you going on vacation next week? Like, not really vacation. I'm going to work at my church camp instead. Oh, really? Blah, blah, blah. It sparks, just that simple thing is more inviting than just thinking, oh, we welcome everybody in. It actually even mentions in that article the name tag. Things like that. Like, that's great, and it helps, but you're not going to get those people coming through your doors if you're not an inviting church as opposed to we're a welcoming church. We We welcome anyone. We commune every Sunday so that everyone feels welcome. That works, but how do you get them there? So the fact that just small ideas and small conversation can really build real fast. And Flat Jesus is a perfect example of that. I mean, it started as just 3 of us here that went to church together, one from all the way in Pennsylvania. And then another guy ended up taking it to his group, and the amount of people that had no idea what it was besides seeing it on my golf cart that asked questions and start the conversation. So it's more of a faith sharing story than it more is a faith journey for me. But it's real and it can happen. You just need to go out, and you don't have to be in their face about it. Just the mention of like an Oktoberfest coming up gets a lot of, really, what is that? And well, we have all these games out, just that starts the roll. It gets them here, it gets them, even if they only come to events at first, eventually they might show up and come more on Sundays and understand. So, talking about confirmation and what you guys do in confirmation, talking with your friends, very easy to do without being, you should believe in God and come to my church. But just, here's what we do, and this is the fun we have, this is what we talk about, gets it started. So something that easy, that small as a Flat Jesus can really get the conversation going. Hang it from your backpack or something, or from your work bag, and just see where it starts to spark the conversation. It's kind of the point of mine. So that's all I got.
Does anyone else have a faith story? Well, I have one more quick one, but an important one. Reaching out and going off of what Nick was saying, being an inviting church, I think we all need to know that at Grace, we are a faith story, right? Look at where we were a year and a half ago, no pastor, to having a pastor, to being a church that a pastor can call 2 people in the morning and we will do the service because we love this church so much. And I think if you look at Grace and our journey, it's a faith story in and of itself. And we all know this story. And we all know how it's going to end and grow. And that's with us continuing to reach out to other people. One of the ways that we're going to do that, one of the ways that we're making sure that we're doing what we need to in our community is we are changing confirmation. Change is always difficult, challenging, exciting, nerve-wracking, and all of that. And I was blessed to meet with Pastor Dawn and Camille this week, and we are changing confirmation. Letters are done, and we'll be going out to all the confirmation parents. I have one here if you'd like to take one. Confirmation will now be 2 years. It'll be for 7th and 8th graders. So we're having to adjust a bit some of the kiddos that are in confirmation now and what they're going to be doing. Confirmation will meet 1 time a month, but it's very different. They will be working on the concept of, maybe if you want to look at it like Flat Stanley or Flat Jesus, and how they are touching people's lives in what they're doing throughout the month. So coming back month after month and sharing what they've done. Maybe it's through a poster, maybe it's through activities. It's getting involved in things here at church, getting involved in other places. How is their faith really working in the community, and how Pastor Dawn and Camille are tying those together are really neat. And I think it'll meet the needs of the children even more so, and I think it'll also meet the needs of what is just what it is in our community now. No longer do we have Wednesdays are for church programs only. We have soccer and hockey, and we have all kinds of different things. And we have to be realistic. In order to have the kids there and to make sure they're taking their faith journey, we have to look at it a little bit differently. And so that is what we're doing. Any other faith stories?
So the question, how many years was confirmation?
It was 3 years. It was 3 years. Yeah, 3 years.
I know that when my sons, it was just not working for them at all. Check the box for most of them. And they didn't continue, and it just.
And I think the kids
So
really I think they'll love it. They'll be, if you want to think of it as homework, in a way, but it's really to tie in the importance of making sure you're either sharing or living your life out in a God way. And then being able to come back and share those stories. There will also be retreats, either like a 1-day weekend retreat, there'll be camps, there'll be all kinds of different things. Confirmation will be in October because they want to be able to utilize the summers to do some activities with the kids. So I think it'll be a really neat program and something that the kids might be more willing to share with others that don't go to our church because the commitment is just a little bit different. Okay.
Veggies.
Oh, you got my leg Jesus too. I'm so excited. That's right. I forgot I did that. And I have an awesome story too. Okay, so last week after church, I went home and changed, and I came and I picked as much as I could and filled it up in Tim's truck, and then went home and I peeled the corn and I broke them into small pieces. And I think I had something like 36 half ears of corn. I sliced up every cucumber and every tomato and put them on big trays and cooked the corn. And as I was kind of prepping and doing all that, I realized I knew I was going to bring it to Lazarus' house for their dinner by 6:30. But I thought, Kurt Redeman has done so much for the garden and helping me because I was the worst gardener ever this year. So I called Kurt. I said, listen, come on over for dinner and then let's go to Lazarus' house and bring all of this. And that's what we did. So Kurt and I and my family had a wonderful dinner together, thanks to my mom who, made it and happened to drop it off because I did not make it. And then we went off, Kurt and I went out to Lazarus' house together and brought the food in, and then all that conversation about the garden for next year back and forth. I thought, how blessed am I that I can just pick up the phone and call someone at church and have them over for dinner, and then we do that wonderful journey in delivering some food. And so Jesus has been with us and is always with us, but sometimes we just have to open our eyes, and sometimes he's in the corn in the cow, and that's okay.
I think another good one, I wish George was here because he could tell it better, but when did we last volunteer? Oh, the food drive at the Cougars game. It's a Thriving food drive, so it's not just Grace, it's a Thriving food drive with all the local Thriving churches, and I think our turnout by far tripled the next closest church, and we're probably the smallest church of all the contingent that was invited and part of it. So the participation from this church is part of that faith story that Renee was talking about. Is we've gone from being, in my opinion, more passive, just yes, we're here every Sunday, we're going home now. So we have a lot more activity and people going to stuff and volunteering their time. Like with Oktoberfest coming up, with, what was the last event we did? VBS, we had a great turnout. Shoot, we had more adults almost than we had kids. Because we had an adult VBS, so there was volunteers doing VBS, but there was an adult VBS that there was at least 10 of them in there every night that I remember, sitting with Pastor Don doing adult portion of the VBS. So we have the activity and the people want to be here, and we have members that are active, which a lot of churches struggle with, big time. Not just youth, but across the board involvement. So that's a huge thing that we have going for us, is we have involved members, not just put butts in the pews every Sunday. We have a active membership, which is really good, and it helps, and it makes, especially in where we're at with a part-time pastor, not a full-time pastor, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done, so that helps. Supercharged Surplus Sundays, we've only had, when did we start them, in May? No, January.
No, January.
So we basically started this year, at the beginning of the year. We might have had one last year. So we're not even a year in, or we're just reaching a year in, and we've gone from 7 or 8 people showing up to help on a Supercharged Surplus Sunday to 27 when they did the El Salvador thing. We had probably close to that at the last one, where we weeded the garden, we did some work up front, did the prayer walk up front was redone and everything. We probably had another 25 to 30 there, which is the ultimate goal, to eventually have, when we go back out and do some volunteering out, we did Lazarus' house before, we're going to reach out for some more, to have some always here at church doing some stuff around church, but to then have groups going out as well. Instead of just one group that either does one or the other, we can have multiple groups that go out. So we're getting there, and it's great to see, compared to, like I said, there's a lot of churches that I've talked to that struggle just to get people to do anything beyond showing up on Sunday. And those churches are financially stable, and they don't have the issues that we have going on. And so, in my opinion, you would think that would be easier for them to then just volunteer to help. And well, we're at least sure, we're in so much uncertainty, and yet we still have such involvement. It's awesome. But you again don't see everywhere as readily as you would think.
yes. And I was a little jealous that the adults were sitting back there, and I'm like, oh, that looks like it could have been
Oh,
fun.
because
So-
you were helping with the kids.
Yeah, and that was fine, but I thought that was pretty cool
Right.
to have that. I've never seen that, so I thought that was
That was
cool.
neat, that was something to do this year.
Yeah. I thought that was neat.
Our bread and wine has been blessed, and Pastor Dawn said that I am able to provide that to you today and in the form of communion. Lord of all, as you serve all people, call us to serve in mission to our neighbors, community,